My name is Courtney Jenkins, and at 29 I was 3 days from marrying the man I thought was my forever. That dream shattered at a family dinner when his parents slammed a prenup on the table and barked, "Sign here or get out." His sister cackled, thinking they'd cornered me. They had no clue the numbers in my account could buy their mansion twice over, and I wasn't about to bow. Just then my phone buzzed. I answered, my lawyer's voice calm, almost amused. What he said made my lips curl into a smile, and their smug grins froze. Before I get to my story, I wanted to know what time and what city you're listening in. I'm glad to know how far my story has spread, and hopefully it helps someone realize it sooner. I smiled, stood and walked out, wiped those smug grins clean. His call came seconds later, voice cracking, but I cut it short. The real fight was just beginning. I grew up in a modest house in Brooklyn where my parents, both nurses, drilled into me the value of standing on my own 2 feet. Money was tight but enough, and they pushed education as the way up. I clawed my way through NYU on scholarships, burning the midnight oil to graduate top of my class in finance. That hustle shaped me. I learned to spot a good investment early, picking stocks that doubled my savings by junior year. My aunt, my biggest cheerleader, saw it too. When she passed during my final semester, she left me $6 million from decades of quiet, clever trades. Nobody would have guessed from her simple life in Queens. I poured most of that into safe investments, letting it grow, and used a chunk to launch my fintech app, a tool for everyday people to manage investments. By 27, the company was valued at $3 million, pushing my worth to $9 million. I kept it under wraps, living in a decent Michigan City apartment near the lake, driving a reliable Honda, dressing sharp but not flashy. I wanted my work to speak, not my bank account. Only my parents, my sister, Angela Jenkins, my friend Kimberly Ross, and my colleague Danielle Ross knew the truth. Angela, 3 years older, was my rock. She'd call from her Chicago teaching job, swapping stories about dodging toxic family drama from her friends' in-laws. "Stay sharp, Courtney," she'd say. "People hide agendas." Her words stuck. Kimberly, my college roommate turned lawyer, was my other lifeline. She'd help me navigate the legal maze of starting my company, her sharp mind catching contract loopholes I missed. Trust between us ran deep. She knew every dollar I had and why I hid it. Danielle, a coder at my startup, was newer but loyal, crunching numbers to keep our app's valuation airtight. I met Justin at a financial literacy gala in Indianapolis where my company donated app access for low-income families. He was there because his family, big players in Michigan City's finance scene, never missed a high-profile event. Justin stood out, not just his easy smile or sharp suit, but the way he asked real questions about the cause, not just nodding like the other trust fund types. We talked for hours about market gaps, lakeside runs, our shared obsession with Chicago-style pizza. When he asked for my number, I didn't hesitate, even knowing his family's clout. The Barretts were old money, their investment firm, a Midwest powerhouse since the railroad days. Our first date was a sunset walk along Lake Michigan's dunes, Justin carrying a thermos of coffee he'd brewed himself. He'd looked up my app, said he liked its clean design and mission. That was Justin. Thoughtful, grounded, not flashing wealth like his peers. We fell fast. Weekend hikes turned into late-night debates about stock trends, failed attempts at homemade pasta, and a connection that felt like home. He loved my drive, how I built something from nothing. I loved his fairness, the way he pushed for ethical deals despite his family's cutthroat legacy. My wealth never came up. It didn't seem to matter. I thought we were building something real, something equal. Kimberly and Danielle cheered me on. "He's solid," Kimberly said over coffee, "but watch his family. Old money's tricky." Danielle, crunching data at the office, agreed. "They'll expect you to fit their mold." Angela was blunter on our weekly calls. "Rich families love control. Don't let them push you." I brushed it off, caught up in Justin. When he suggested meeting his parents after 6 months, I was nervous but hopeful. I wanted them to see me, Courtney, the woman who matched their son's heart, not some resume to judge. The night before we drove to their beach house in Michigan City, Justin got quiet. "My family's intense," he said, staring at the lake. "They've got expectations." I pressed, but he waved it off, saying it was just about appearances. His hesitation hit me wrong, like he was holding something back. I didn't push, figuring I'd see for myself. Lying awake that night, Angela's warning echoed, hidden agendas. For the first time, I wondered if Justin was fully on my side, or if his family's shadow was bigger than I thought. The Barrett's beach house in Michigan City loomed against the Lake Michigan dunes, all glass and cedar, big enough to host a small wedding. 6 months into dating Justin Barrett, he drove us there to meet his family. I'd felt a knot in my stomach since his cryptic warning the night before about their intensity. Stepping inside, the place screamed money, polished wood floors, a chandelier glinting over a view of the water. I wore a simple dress, nice but not showy, wanting them to see me, not some polished version. George Barrett, Justin's father, greeted us with a firm handshake, his tailored blazer screaming, Midwest Finance Kingpin. Linda Barrett, his mother, offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her silk scarf probably worth my monthly rent. Michelle Barrett, his older sister, leaned against a counter, her sharp gaze sizing me up like I was a stock about to crash. Courtney, so nice to finally meet you, Linda said, her tone sweet but probing. NYU's respectable. Did scholarships cover everything? The question sounded innocent but wasn't. It was a dig at my background. Over dinner, George talked investments with Justin, name-dropping clients I'd never heard of, shutting me out. Michelle chimed in, asking about my little app like it was a side hustle. Fintech's cute, she said, smirking. But real money's in established firms like ours. Justin squeezed my hand under the table, but he didn't call her out. Linda kept up the subtle jabs. Your parents must be so proud being nurses. Such a practical career. I forced a smile, feeling like I was on trial for not being born rich. Ryan Clark, Justin's colleague from the firm, was there too, invited for some deal discussion. He seemed friendly, but dropped hints about the Barrett's expectations. Family legacy's a big deal here, he said, glancing at me. Justin's lucky to carry it. It felt like a warning. I caught Justin's eye, but he looked away, focusing on his plate. That stung. He wasn't defending me, just navigating his family like always. Things got worse when Michelle pulled out her phone, texting someone with a sly grin. Later, I overheard her on a call outside mentioning a check on her background. I didn't know who she was talking to, but it set off alarms. Angela's words from our last call echoed, rich families love control. I texted Kimberly Ross, my lawyer and best friend, that night. Justin's family's digging into me. Advice? She replied, fast. Keep your cards close. Don't show your hand yet. Her calm focus grounded me. She'd been my rock since college, always spotting traps I missed. Back in Michigan City, Justin proposed a year later on a quiet beach near the dunes with his aunt's sapphire ring glinting in the sunset. I said yes, heart racing, thinking we'd build something together. But his family's shadow lingered. Linda pushed for a proper wedding venue, implying I couldn't afford their standards. I let it slide, pride keeping my $9 million secret. Danielle Ross, my startup's lead coder, noticed my stress at work. They're testing you, she said, handing me our latest valuation report. Stay focused. Your app's killing it. Her support kept me steady. Michelle's behavior got bolder. At a family brunch, she mentioned a friend who'd heard about my app. Heather Clark, Justin's ex, who'd texted Michelle about me. She thinks you're ambitious, Michelle said, her tone dripping with insinuation. I realized she was trying to rattle me, maybe even sabotage things. Justin brushed it off as sister stuff, but his dismissal felt off, like he was avoiding conflict. Ryan at the same brunch let slip that Justin had been stressed about family expectations for months. He's got a lot riding on this, Ryan said, not meeting my eyes. Another red flag. I called Angela that night, pacing my apartment. Michelle's digging, maybe with Justin's ex. Something's not right. Angela didn't mince words. Sounds like they're building a case against you. Don't let them box you in. Her Chicago bluntness hit home. I needed to stay sharp. I met Kimberly for coffee the next day, laying out my worries. She leaned forward, all business. If they're digging, we dig back. I know a guy, Scott Mills, a private investigator. He can look into their firm, see if they've got dirt. I hesitated, but her confidence sold me. Do it, I said, quietly. Scott Mills was a pro mid-40s with a knack for finding financial skeletons. Kimberly hired him that week, tasking him to check the Barrett's investment firm for anything shady, tax loopholes, questionable deals. If they're playing dirty, we'll have leverage, Kimberly said. I felt a mix of nerves and resolve. I wasn't the naive girl they thought. My app's success, my investments, my hustle, those were mine, and I wouldn't let the Barretts diminish them. As wedding planning ramped up, Justin got quieter. One night walking by the lake, he admitted his family was pressuring him about our future. They just want what's best, he said, but his voice wavered like he wasn't sure who he was convincing. I pressed for details, but he shut down, saying it was complicated. That was the moment I knew. He was hiding something, maybe even from himself. I went home staring at the ceiling, Angela's warning louder now. People hide agendas. I wasn't just walking into a family dinner soon, I was walking into a fight. Late that night, I slipped out to the balcony for air. Voices carried from the beach house's patio below, Michelle on her phone again, laughing. The PI's got nothing big on her yet, but she's no match for us, she said. Mom will handle it at the dinner. My blood ran cold. They were planning something, and Justin's silence felt heavier. I wasn't just meeting his family anymore. I was stepping into their trap, and I had to be ready. Wedding planning started as a whirlwind of joy, but it quickly showed cracks. Linda Barrett took over, pushing for a lavish venue at a Michigan City country club, assuming I couldn't afford anything worthy of a Barrett. She picked out a towering cake from an upscale bakery, dismissing my choice of a simple lemon one as charming but not quite right. I let it go, pride keeping my $9 million under wraps. I figured once Justin and I were married, we'd carve out our own life downtown away from their lakefront estate. My one non-negotiable was my dress, sleek, modern, making me feel unstoppable. Even then, Linda hinted it was budget-friendly, her smile sharp as a blade. Justin tried to balance things, backing me on small choices like flowers but nudging me to compromise on the guest list when Linda added her socialite friends. "It's just easier," he'd say, his voice soft but strained. I gave in more than I wanted, telling myself the details didn't matter as long as we ended up together. But Michelle Barrett's probing from that first dinner lingered in my mind, especially her overheard call about a PI. I kept my guard up, texting Kimberly Ross to stay ready. "They're circling," I wrote. "Scott's on it," she replied, meaning our PI. Scott Mills was digging into the Barrett's firm. 3 days before the wedding, everything was set. Venue booked, catering confirmed, my dress tailored. I was finalizing with the photographer when Linda called, her voice syrupy. "Courtney, join us for a family dinner tonight at the beach house. Just us to celebrate before the chaos." Justin was stuck at a client meeting, she said, so it'd be a cozy evening. I should have caught the trap in her tone, but I was running on coffee and stress, hoping for a chance to connect. I agreed, pulling into their driveway that evening, my Honda out of place next to George's Bentley and Michelle's Porsche. The beach house dining room felt like a stage, all polished wood and lake views, the table set with untouched plates. George Barrett sat at the head, his suit crisp, exuding boardroom authority. Linda, in a designer dress, poured wine with practiced grace. Michelle lounged across from me, her smirk barely hidden. Ryan Clark wasn't there, but his earlier comment about family legacy echoed in my head. "Courtney, so glad you're here," Linda set her smile tight. "We need to settle some business before the big day." My stomach dropped. George slid a thick document across the table, blue cover gleaming. "This is a prenup," he said, no preamble. "It protects our family's assets and outlines terms if the marriage ends." I stared at it, heart pounding. "Justin and I never discussed this." Linda leaned in. "He understands its necessity. Barrett's spouses always sign." I doubted it. Michelle's husband came from money, no need for protection. I scanned the pages, my finance brain kicking in. It was brutal. I'd get nothing in a divorce, no matter how long we were married, and clauses could claim my app's intellectual property. "This is one-sided," I said, voice steady despite the heat in my chest. George waved a hand. "Standard for our wealth level. And my business. My assets." Michelle laughed loud and sharp. "Your little app. It's not exactly Barrett level, dear." The condescension burned. They saw me as a nobody climbing too high. "We could add a clause for your company," George offered, like throwing a bone. "Justin's generous, you know. He supports small ventures." Linda produced a pen. "Sign tonight. The wedding's close. I need my lawyer to review it," I said. George's eyes narrowed. "Our attorney's top tier." "For Barrett interests," I shot back. "Not mine." Linda's smile faltered. "This is standard, Courtney. Practical. Then 24 hours for review." They exchanged a glance. "Tonight," George said, voice hard. "Or the wedding's at risk." "So it's sign or get out," I pressed, needing clarity. Linda's eyes went cold. "Barrett expectations aren't negotiable. If you love Justin, you'll sign." Michelle leaned back, smirking. "Or get out," George said bluntly. "We've paid for this wedding. We'll cancel if needed." The ultimatum hung heavy. They thought I'd cave, the middle-class girl desperate for their son. I grabbed the document, hands steady. "I'll talk to Justin." Linda scoffed. "He knows family duty." That cut deep. The idea he was in on this. By morning, George said, "Sign, or we're done." As I walked out, Michelle's voice drifted from the dining room. "She'll sign. Who else gets a Barrett?" Linda's laugh twisted the knife. I drove off, tears blurring the lakefront road, pulling over once to breathe. Justin called twice. I ignored him, too raw to talk. Ryan Clark texted out of nowhere, "Heard you left upset." Justin knew about the prenup. "Didn't want to stress you." My heart sank. He was complicit. At home, I called Angela Jenkins. "They ambushed me with a prenup," I said, voice shaking. "Ultimatum." Justin might have known. Angela didn't hesitate. "Don't bend, Courtney. They're bullies. You're worth more than their game." Her words steadied me. I texted Danielle Ross, who'd been crunching our app's numbers. Need you to double-check the valuation tomorrow. On it, she replied. You've got this. Kimberly was next. They hit me with a prenup, I told her, pacing. It's a power grab. Her voice was all business. Send me the doc. Scott's got something on their firm. Shady offshore deals. We'll hit back. My anger sharpened into focus. The Barretts wanted a fight, and I wasn't the pushover they thought. I wasn't just protecting my heart anymore. I was ready to flip their world upside down. I sat in my Michigan City apartment, the prenup document heavy on my coffee table, its pages screaming the Barretts' arrogance. My hands shook from the dinner ambush, but Angela's words, "Don't bend, Courtney," burned in my mind. I dialed Kimberly Ross first thing. They hit me with a prenup, I said, voice tight. It's a trap. I get nothing, and they could claim my app's IP. Kimberly didn't flinch. Send it over. We'll tear it apart. Scott's got dirt on their firm. Offshore accounts, tax dodges. We're building a counter. Her confidence steadied me. Let's hit back, I said. Hard. Kimberly met me at a diner near the lake that morning, her laptop open, eyes sharp. She'd drafted a counter prenup. Fair balance, protecting my $9 million and Justin's assets equally, with ironclad clauses for my app's IP. This levels the field, she said, sliding it over. But we need more. Scott found a paper trail. The Barretts' firm funneled money through shady Cayman accounts. It's leverage. I nodded, feeling the shift. I wasn't just defending myself now. I was flipping their game. Danielle Ross called next, confirming our app's latest valuation, $3 million locked in from our last funding round. Your numbers are solid, she said. They can't touch you. Her support fueled me. I texted Angela Jenkins, filling her in. They think I'm broke, I wrote. I'm done hiding. Her reply was instant. Cut them loose if Justin's not all in. You're worth more. Her bluntness hit home. I needed to know where he stood. I called Justin Barrett, my heart pounding. He answered on the first ring. Courtney, what happened? Mom said you stormed out. His voice was strained, but I wasn't buying the concern. Your family ambushed me with a prenup, I said, keeping my tone even. Sign or get out, they said. You knew, didn't you? Silence. Then I meant to tell you, he admitted, voice low. I thought I'd handle it later. My chest tightened. Later. 3 days before our wedding, you let them blindside me. It's family tradition, he said, defensive. Protects our trusts. And my business. My work, I pressed. They wrote clauses to claim my app. Another pause. That's not right, he said, but his hesitation screamed complicity. Ryan Clark's text from last night flashed in my mind. Justin knew. Ryan told me you were in on it, I said, voice hard. You knew from the start. He didn't deny it. I didn't want to stress you, he mumbled. It's just a paper. Just a paper, I snapped. It's control, Justin. Your family thinks I'm a nobody, and you let them. He sighed, using that lawyer tone I hated. You're overreacting. We can fix it after the wedding. After your mom said it's non-negotiable for a Barrett wife. We'll figure it out, he hedged. Family trusts are complicated, hard for a nurse's kid to get. The echo of Linda's condescension cut deep. If it's so simple, why let them threaten to cancel our wedding? No answer. Choose, Justin, I said. Me or them. I love you, he said. But their family. That was it. He wasn't all in. I hung up, tears hot but resolve hotter. A text buzzed from an unknown number. Heather Clark, Justin's ex, forwarded by Michelle. Heard you're marrying up, it read. Careful. Barretts don't keep strays long. The sabotage was clear. Michelle was pulling strings, trying to shake me. I saved the text, forwarding it to Kimberly. Michelle's playing dirty, I wrote. Use this. Kimberly replied, got it. Scott's dirt is ready. Their firm's dodging taxes big time. We'll bury them. I met Danielle at the office later, her desk piled with valuation reports. You're at $3 million, she said, handing me the numbers. Show them who you are. I nodded, my mind racing. Angela called as I drove home. Justin knew, she asked, furious. Dump him now, Courtney. You don't need a man who won't fight for you. Her words sank in. She was right. This wasn't just about the Barretts anymore. Justin's silence was a betrayal, and I wasn't signing my life away to fix it. Kimberly called that evening, her voice electric. Scott's got enough to rattle them. Offshore accounts tied to George's firm, sketchy enough to raise eyebrows. The counter prenup's ready. When do we hit? I thought of Michelle's smirk, Linda's fake sweetness, George's ultimatum, Justin's weak excuses. Tomorrow, I said. We meet them at the lakefront restaurant. I'm done playing nice. Kimberly laughed. That's my girl. We'll wipe their grins clean. I barely slept, my mind mapping every step. The Barretts thought they'd cornered a nobody, but they were about to meet Courtney Jenkins, the woman with $9 million and no patience for their games. Tomorrow I'd walk into that restaurant with Kimberly's counter-prenup, Scott's dirt, and the truth about my wealth. They'd pushed too far, and I was ready to push back harder. The lakefront restaurant in Michigan City gleamed under the evening sun, its glass walls reflecting the dunes. I'd chosen it for the showdown, public enough to keep things civil, private enough to hit hard. Kimberly Ross sat beside me, her leather portfolio packed with our counter-prenup and Scott Mills's dirt on the Barretts. I wore a tailored black dress, sharp and unyielding, my aunt's sapphire earrings glinting as a reminder of my roots. Justin Barrett, George Barrett, Linda Barrett, and Michelle Barrett arrived 10 minutes late. A power move, no doubt. George's suit screamed authority, Linda's designer gown dripped wealth, Michelle's smirk was sharp as ever, and Justin looked drained, his tie slightly off. "Courtney, let's make this quick," Linda said, settling in. "Have you signed?" Her tone assumed compliance. I slid the counter prenup across the table, my face calm. "Not your version. This one's fair. Protects my assets, and Justin's equally, with clauses for my app's IP." George's eyebrows shot up. "Your assets." Michelle snorted. "What's your little startup?" I held their gaze unflinching. $9 million. $6 million from my aunt's estate, $3 million from my company's valuation. I'm not the broke girl you thought. The table went silent. Linda's wine glass froze midair, Michelle's smirk vanished. George's jaw tightened. Justin's eyes widened, but he said nothing. That hurt most. "Impossible," Linda stammered. "You live in a modest apartment." "I value substance over flash," I said, "unlike some." George grabbed the financial statements I'd brought, his lawyer eyes scanning fast. "These are legitimate," he muttered, stunned. Michelle's face reddened. "Why hide this?" she snapped. "Why play poor to be loved for me?" I said, voice steady. "Not my money." "But you failed that test." "Next reveal." "Your prenup was a power grab," I said, tapping our counter version. "This one's balanced. Equal splits based on marriage length, no claims on my IP." George flipped through it, his frown deepening. "This changes things," he admitted, but Linda cut in. "We need time to review." "You gave me none," I shot back. "You said sign or get out. Now you've got until tomorrow." Michelle scoffed, but her confidence was cracking. Third reveal. I pulled out my phone, displaying Heather Clark's text, forwarded by Michelle. "Heard you're marrying up. Careful. Barretts don't keep strays long." Michelle paled. "You sent this," I said, staring her down. "Using Justin's ex to scare me off. It backfired." Linda gasped, turning to Michelle. "You did what?" Michelle stammered. "It was just a warning." "It was sabotage," I said. "And it proves you're scared of who I really am." Fourth reveal. "Scott Mills, my investigator, found something else," I said, sliding over his report. "Your firm's been dodging taxes through Cayman accounts. Shady deals, George. That's your legacy." George's face went ashen, his hands gripping the paper. "This is inaccurate," he said. But his voice shook. Linda looked betrayed, Michelle frozen. Justin finally spoke, voice low. "Courtney, why go this far?" I turned to him, my heart heavy but resolve firm. "Because you knew about their prenup from the start and let them ambush me." That was the fifth reveal, his complicity. Justin's eyes dropped. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he mumbled. "I thought I could fix it." "You chose them," I said, voice breaking but clear. "You let them think I was nothing. That's not love." He reached for my hand. "Courtney, please. We can work this out." I pulled back. "No, Justin. I'm done with half measures." I stood Kimberly beside me and dropped the final blow. "The wedding's off. I'm walking away with my $9 million and my dignity." Michelle's mouth gaped, Linda's eyes welled up, George's face was stone. Justin looked gutted, but I didn't waver. My phone buzzed. Kimberly's signal that the $9 million transfer was confirmed, my safety net secure. I smiled the same smile from the dinner and walked out. Their smug grins were gone, replaced by shock and regret. I didn't look back. Outside, the lake air hit me cool and freeing. I'd spent years hiding my worth to be loved for me, but the Barretts and Justin showed me love wasn't enough without respect. I called Angela Jenkins as I drove home. "It's done," I said. "Wedding's off." She exhaled. "You did right, Courtney. You're free now." Danielle Ross texted, "Proud of you." "App's still climbing." Kimberly called later, laughing. "Scott says their firm's scrambling to cover those accounts." "You shook them." Sitting in my apartment, I reflected on the whirlwind. I learned a hard lesson: self-respect trumps toxic love every time. The Barretts saw wealth as power, a tool to control. I saw it as independence, a way to live true. Their mistake was underestimating me, assuming I'd bend to fit their mold. But I wasn't their pawn. I was Courtney Jenkins, built from scratch, and I'd never compromise my value again. To anyone listening, here's my warning: don't ignore the signs of disrespect, whether it's family, a partner, or their allies. If they demand you shrink to fit their world, walk away. Equality and independence aren't negotiable. They're the foundation of a life worth living. I learned that the hard way, but it made me stronger. You can be too. Thank you for hearing my story. It's not just about me, it's about knowing your worth and standing firm. If this resonated, hit subscribe and drop a comment about a time you had to stand up to being underestimated. Your story might inspire someone else to walk away from what doesn't serve them.
I was reviewing vendor contracts at the front desk of the company I helped build. Dad, you're no longer my daughter. All future matters will go through my lawyer. That was it. No hello. No warning. Just 20 words to cut me out of both the family and the business, like I was a stain on his suit. I stared at the screen for a full minute. No follow-up. No explanation. Just silence. I sat back in the chair, hands steady, even though everything inside me was shifting. Behind me, I could hear my brother laughing in the hallway. He'd been gloating for days, acting like something was coming. I guess this was it. 3 weeks ago, I found some errors in the numbers. My father had taken out personal loans in the company's name, covering expenses that had nothing to do with business. When I confronted him, he told me to stay in my lane. When I pushed again, he told me I was too emotional to handle leadership. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. But I did start taking screenshots. And copies. And backups. I had helped build this company from the ground up. At 19, I was running payroll. By 26, I was managing our biggest accounts. I knew where everything lived: contracts, passwords, supplier chains. And they knew that. But somewhere along the way, they convinced themselves I wouldn't fight back. I looked back at the text. You're no longer my daughter. And just like that, every Sunday dinner, every 14-hour workday, every favor, loan, and sacrifice, they erased it all with a single sentence. So I replied with one. Me. As you wish. Then I minimized the screen, opened my encrypted folder, and started going to work. Bank logins. Payment gateways. Business registrations. Vendor contracts. Digital authorizations. I wasn't angry. I was methodical. I didn't scream. I documented. They thought they could cut me off like a branch. They forgot I was the root. My name is Naomi Brooks. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because when my father disowned me by text, I answered like a businesswoman. And I didn't need revenge. I had receipts. Long before they erased me with a lawyer's text, I was already disappearing. One sacrifice at a time. At 19, I skipped college orientation because Dad needed someone to run the front office. Just for a few weeks, he said. It turned into 5 years. While my brother, Darren, came and went as he pleased, pitching big ideas and showing up late to meetings, I was the one tracking inventory, dealing with irate suppliers, fixing payroll glitches. They called it helping the family. But I was the only one who never got paid on time. I worked holidays while Darren flew to Miami for networking. I filed the tax documents. I stayed up until 3 a.m. drafting proposals my dad slapped his name on. And every time I asked for clarity on ownership, partnership, or equity, he'd say, "We're a family business. It's all yours one day." One day. It became his favorite way to pacify me. Just vague enough to keep me hoping. Just firm enough to keep me obedient. When I asked for a raise, he told me, "If you want a paycheck, go get a job like everybody else." But when Darren wanted new office furniture, approved. Instantly. I remember once my mom pulled me aside and said, "Your father expects more from you because he knows you're capable." It's a compliment. But compliments don't pay rent. And they don't build ownership. Still, I stayed. Because I believed in the business. Because I loved what we were building until I realized it was never ours. It was his. And Darren's. And I was just the scaffolding. When I brought up some financial discrepancies 2 months ago, tens of thousands misallocated, unexplained withdrawals, Dad said I was being paranoid. Don't go digging where you don't belong. That's when I knew. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a liability with access. So I quietly began collecting every document I'd ever touched. Every tax file. Every vendor contract. Every shared folder. They didn't notice. Because they were too used to me being the one who cleaned up, not the one who walked away. They thought I was lucky to be there. That I should be grateful for the opportunity to work 60 hours a week and still get called just the admin girl. But what they didn't understand was this. I didn't need their approval to do great work. And I didn't need their permission to protect it when the knives came out. So when that message came through, "You're no longer my daughter," all it really did was confirm what they'd been showing me for years. I just finally decided to believe them. The signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to believe them. It started small. A shared calendar invite I was accidentally left off. A vendor meeting rescheduled without telling me. A client I'd handled for 3 years suddenly being reassigned to Darren. At first, I brushed it off. Told myself I was overthinking. But then my email access changed. Certain folders were locked. Invoices I used to sign off on began going straight to Darren, even though he didn't understand half the terms. I asked Dad about it. He laughed and said, "We're just streamlining things. Less confusion." Confusion for who? I was the one who built that system. Then came the bank account notification. The monthly business account summary, which always came to my inbox, suddenly stopped. When I logged in manually, it said, "Access revoked by account holder." That's when I knew. They were phasing me out. Silently. Systematically. Like I was a bad hire they couldn't fire, so they tried to erase me piece by piece.
And Darren?
He couldn't stop smirking, walking around the office like he was next in line for the throne. He even changed the office nameplate outside Dad's office to Executive Founder and Son. It was subtle, but loud if you knew where to look. I overheard him one day in the break room telling a client on speaker, "Yeah, Naomi handles the paperwork, but real leadership? That comes from the top." He meant himself. The guy who couldn't read a balance sheet without color coding. The guy who once approved a supplier payment twice and cost us $12,000. The same week, I found a memo draft buried in the shared drive I wasn't supposed to access.
Subject:
New management structure, Q4 transition. In it, they outlined a new, streamlined executive path where I was listed under administrative consulting part-time basis.
Part-time.
In a company I'd run when they were on vacation. Still, I didn't say anything. Didn't confront. Just took screenshots. Saved files. Noted dates. Because you don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You document. You prepare. And when the final blow came, the text from my father, the formal disowning, it didn't break me. It confirmed what they'd been working toward all along. They wanted me out. And they thought cutting off my bloodline would cut off my power. They forgot the foundation was mine. The systems were mine. The clients trusted me.
So I didn't shout.
I didn't threaten. I didn't try to fix it. I just opened my laptop and got ready to flip the switch. There's a unique calm that comes the moment you stop begging to be valued and start moving like someone who remembers what they built. After my father's text, I made coffee, sat at my desk, opened my encrypted hard drive. Everything was already organized. All the documents, all the passwords, all the contracts I'd quietly pulled into my private archive over the last year. Not because I was planning revenge, but because I knew one day I might need proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't exaggerating, that I had value, even if they never said it out loud. The first thing I did was pull up the business registration. Name on file? Mine and my father's. That meant I still had signing power on every major account. I contacted the bank and requested a temporary freeze on disbursements, citing suspected unauthorized restructuring. Completely within my rights as a named co-owner. Then I logged into the payroll system, one I had designed, one they never learned to manage themselves. I removed autopay permissions from every account linked to them. Canceled scheduled transfers to Darren's fake consulting firm. I logged into Stripe, PayPal, QuickBooks, anywhere cash flowed. and paused everything. Every recurring supplier, every outbound invoice, every internal system tied to my credentials. Then I emailed our top 5 clients. Very professional, very calm. There will be a temporary pause in operations due to internal restructuring. I am still a listed co-owner and will personally ensure the continuity of services. You will not be billed until we clarify leadership roles. All 5 replied within the hour. They were with me. Next, I called my lawyer, someone I'd worked with privately for months. We finalized a letter of dissolution, one that formally requested either a buyout or dissolution of the partnership. Immediately. I wanted out. With damages.
And receipts.
I wasn't walking away empty-handed. Not from something I helped build. I scheduled the letter to go out at 9 a.m. the next day. Then I turned off my phone, ordered dinner,
And watched a movie.
I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. They thought they were locking me out, but they never realized I'd been holding the master key the entire time. Day 1 was silent. Not a single call. Not a single text. But I knew they'd seen it. My father's lawyer had received the formal notice by 9:03 a.m., proof of business freeze, demand for buyout, and a ledger of every transaction I was halting. The email's subject line was simple. Action initiated per request, Naomi Brooks. By noon, the business credit card was declined at a supplier showroom. By 4 p.m., I heard through a former coworker that 3 employees had approached HR asking why payroll hadn't cleared. Day 2, the panic started. The company's biggest vendor called me directly.
Confused.
Concerned. Naomi, they said it was a system glitch. But is it true? Did you really walk? I smiled. Not a glitch. Just a long overdue correction. My inbox was full. Darren sent 3 messages. Fix this. You're out. You don't get to do this. You're destroying everything. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't destroying anything. I was reclaiming what they tried to erase. At 5:42 p.m., I got a call. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a knock on my door. Firm. Repeated. I looked through the peephole. Uncle Malcolm. My father's older brother. The same man who once told me at Christmas, "You're the only one with a brain in that office." I opened the door halfway. He looked exhausted. Tie crooked. "I need to talk to you," he said.
I didn't invite him in.
Just leaned on the frame. "They're bleeding," he said flatly. "You locked down everything. They can't access client payments, suppliers are pulling out, payroll's frozen, and the board is livid. They thought you'd never do it." I crossed my arms. They were right, until they pushed me far enough. He nodded. "Look, Naomi, you've made your point. Just come back. Fix it. We'll figure it out later." I laughed softly. "No, Uncle Malcolm. Now we figure it out." He rubbed his face. "Your dad, he's humiliated. Darren's useless. The business might fold." I shrugged. "Then it folds. Or he can buy me out. Full market value. Plus damages." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You used to be so quiet," he said. "I still am," I replied. "But silence doesn't mean weak. It just means I was documenting everything." He sighed, then reached into his coat pocket and handed me a manila envelope. Inside, a proposed settlement. Buyout terms. With my lawyer's edits already marked in red. I looked back at him. "You knew this was coming." He didn't deny it. "I told them not to push you. They didn't listen." I nodded, tucked the envelope under my arm, and said, "They wanted to deal with me through lawyers. So now they can." And I closed the door. Not with anger, but with finality. By the end of the week, the cracks had become craters. The business, once running like a well-oiled machine, thanks to me, was buckling. The operations team couldn't access the vendor dashboard. The payroll clerk couldn't reactivate direct deposits. And clients? They weren't paying because they didn't know who was in charge anymore. Darren tried to salvage the mess with a fake PR blast calling it a minor restructuring. But anyone who had worked with us for more than 5 minutes knew better. The truth leaked fast. Whispers in the industry. A Reddit thread from a former employee. Even a vendor rep shared an anonymous post. Never sideline the person who actually runs your company. By the second week, our biggest supplier pulled their contract. By the third, 2 key staff members resigned, citing ethical concerns. The damage wasn't just financial anymore. It was reputational. And then the letter came. My father's lawyer formally requested a sit-down. He wanted to resolve things amicably. Funny, considering his last words to me were, "You're no longer my daughter." The irony? He still expected me to save the business he threw me out of, to come back, to fix what he broke, to be the bandage for a bleeding empire. But I didn't go.
My lawyer did.
With every document, every agreement, every receipt, they offered a lowball buyout. I rejected it. They blamed me for damages. We submitted proof that those damages were a result of decisions they made after locking me out. Every meeting, every memo, every financial shift. I had it all logged. They never saw the collapse coming, because they never thought I'd let them fall. But here's the thing. I wasn't letting them fall. They jumped. When they disowned me, when they erased me, when they dismissed my worth with a single text message, they thought cutting ties meant cutting my power. But I wasn't tied to them. I was tied to the work. And when they pushed me out, they removed the only thing holding it all together. The last straw was watching Darren post a video online, him pacing the empty office, blaming unforeseen technical issues for the downfall. He didn't mention my name once.
Didn't need to.
Everyone already knew. People reached out privately, former coworkers, competitors, even clients. We know what happened. You don't owe them anything. They were right. I owed them nothing. Not my time. Not my silence. And certainly not my rescue. They created the storm. And now they were drowning in it, without the one person who used to hold the umbrella. 2 months after I walked away, I signed a lease. Not for an apartment. For an office. A clean, sunlit corner space on the 4th floor of a modest building downtown. Big enough for 4 desks, 2 plants, and 1 bold new beginning. I didn't waste time trying to revive what they broke. I built something new. Something that couldn't be taken with a text. NB advisory. My name. My terms. No partners who thought love was leverage.
At first, it was just me and a laptop.
But within weeks, I had 3 consulting clients, small, women-owned businesses navigating toxic family structures just like I had. They weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for boundaries. Protection.
Strategy.
I gave them all 3. I taught them how to separate ownership from guilt. How to draft contracts before the favors start. How to keep their name on everything they build. It was the most healing work I'd ever done. Because every time I showed another woman how to protect her power, I reclaimed a piece of mine. Then the media got wind. A business blog ran a feature. The daughter who froze her father's empire and started her own. I didn't give a full interview. Didn't name names. I didn't need to. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about resilience. And when they asked what I do now, I said, I help women leave the doors that won't open and build their own buildings instead. Lucas, my former team lead from the old business, reached out. He said, I always knew you were the backbone. Let me know if you need a CFO. I smiled. Because I didn't just need a team. I had one. Built from people who respected me. Who asked how I was not what I could give. I set my own hours. Wrote my own policies. Paid myself first. And one Friday, I sat in that little office, staring at the nameplate on the door. Naomi Brooks, founder.
No one could take it from me.
No one could lock me out. No one could call me emotional, dramatic, or replaceable. Because I had drawn the line, and made damn sure they couldn't cross it again. It came at 2:17 a.m. A text.
For my father.
We may have overreacted. Can we talk? 12 words. 12 small words. After everything. The man who disowned me by text, who replaced me with my brother and tried to delete me from the very thing I helped build. Now he wanted to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I was tempted to respond, but because it was surreal watching someone realize what happens when the daughter they never valued finally believes them. I didn't respond. I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He knew exactly what to do. By 10 a.m. the next morning, his office had sent a formal reply. All future matters can continue through counsel. Ms. Brooks does not engage in informal communication regarding any business or personal affairs related to previous partners.
Cold?
Maybe, but not colder than. You're no longer my daughter. 2 days later, a courier delivered a final set of settlement papers. Revised. Higher offer. No strings. I signed them with a glass of wine and Nora Jones playing low in the background. Not out of pettiness. Out of peace. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about the message. That I was never going to beg for a seat at a table I built. That I was done being their emergency contact and emotional sponge. That I had outgrown the version of myself they relied on to stay powerful. The week the final deal closed, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name. It was from my mother. I didn't know how to stop him. I should have spoken up. I miss you. There was no apology. Just regret. Which, to me, wasn't the same thing. I folded it once. Slipped it into a file I labeled things that tried to break me. Then I walked to the back of my office, where a corkboard hung above my desk. Pinned in the center was a photo of me, taken on day 1 of NB Advisory. Just me and a key, unlocking the office that had my name on the lease. And underneath that, in gold ink, was a quote I had written on a sticky note. The text said I was no longer their daughter. The receipts said otherwise. That was the last message that mattered. Because in the end, they came for control. They tried to sever blood like it wasn't bound to years of unpaid loyalty. But I didn't burn down their empire. I just turned off the switch and walked out holding the blueprint. Tinsel and packed wall to wall with family. Kids ran across the living room in fuzzy socks, tearing through wrapping paper while adults held up phones to capture every moment. Every child had a gift in their lap. Except mine. Ellie stood by the tree, 6 years old, in her red velvet dress with a little candy cane headband she'd picked out herself. She looked at me, confused, then hopeful. Then the smile faded. My mother clapped her hands and said, "That's everyone." I paused. "Mom, you forgot Ellie's." She blinked. "Oh," she said, glancing at the pile. Then laughed.
Oops.
We forgot her. The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it cut sharper than any scream. A few of the adults chuckled awkwardly, not sure whether to join in or shrink back. My sister smirked. My brother looked away. Ellie's bottom lip began to tremble. She clutched the edge of her dress and whispered, "Did Santa forget me too?" That did it. Something in me settled.
Hardened.
I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I simply knelt beside her, brushed her curls back, and said gently, "No, baby. Santa didn't forget. He just sent your gift through me instead." I reached into my purse, pulled out a small box wrapped in silver paper and tied with a satin ribbon. Ellie's eyes lit up. Everyone in the room turned. Some of them squinted, curious. Others leaned in like they were watching something they couldn't rewind. Ellie untied the ribbon slowly, peeled back the paper. Inside was a black velvet box. She opened it
And gasped.
A delicate gold necklace with a heart-shaped locket sparkled inside. She looked up at me. "Can I open it?" I nodded. She pressed the clasp and the locket popped open. On one side, a photo of us, just me and Ellie, nose to nose, laughing under the park gazebo from last spring. On the other, a tiny inscription in soft cursive. "You are loved beyond measure, Mommy." The room fell absolutely silent. No one laughed. No one moved. I kissed her cheek and said clearly, louder than I needed to, just loud enough to echo, "Real love never forgets." Ellie smiled through her tears and whispered, "I love it, Mommy. It's my favorite." And in that moment, while they all sat frozen with nothing to say, I smiled too. My name is Vanessa Carter. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because when they tried to humiliate my daughter at Christmas, I didn't clap back. I let the silence speak for us. I was never the favorite. Not the loud one. Not the funny one. Not the golden child. That was always my sister, Marla. And when she didn't shine, my brother David did.
Me?
I was the one who cleaned up after the party. The one who offered to help with dishes. The one they said was too sensitive whenever I brought up how often I was left out. Growing up, my mom always made excuses. Marla got the newest clothes. I got her hand-me-downs. She had a sweet 16 with a DJ and a cake taller than me. Mine was a potluck in the backyard, and I made my own cake. When I got pregnant with Ellie at 21, the silence was louder than any scream. No celebration. No congratulations. No baby shower. My mom said, "Well, you made your bed." I remember sitting in the hospital alone, holding Ellie for the first time, wondering if being a mother would feel less lonely than being a daughter. It did. And it didn't. I raised Ellie without their help. No babysitting offers. No, "Can I bring you groceries?" Not even a birthday card in her first year. The only time they started paying attention again was when Ellie turned 5, and I brought her to Thanksgiving. Everyone said the same thing. "Wow, she looks just like you did." And I remember thinking, so maybe now she'll be invisible too. Still, I kept going to the family events.
Why?
Because I thought showing up meant maybe they'd come around. Maybe they'd see me. Maybe they'd see her. But every party, every get-together, it was the same thing. Ellie was so cute, but somehow always left out of the group games. She was sweet, but never on the cousin sleepover invite list. And last Christmas, they handed out gifts to all the grandkids. Except her. They said the delivery was delayed. They said it was a shipping error. But this year, there was no delay. No excuse. Just laughter when my daughter stood alone under the tree. Oh, we forgot her. And that was when the pattern finally snapped into place. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was intentional. Calculated. She was my daughter. And just like they treated me, they had decided she was disposable too. But I wasn't that same silent daughter anymore. And she wouldn't be raised in my shadow. So I smiled and pulled out the gift I had bought weeks ago. A gift I saved for exactly this moment. Because if they were going to show her how small she was to them, then I was going to show her how big she was to me. Looking back, the signs were there. They didn't forget Ellie. They never wanted her included to begin with. 3 weeks before the party, the family group chat was full of planning. Potluck assignments, pajama sizes, gift themes. But no one asked for Ellie's size. No one even tagged me in the message. When I messaged privately, "Hey, just checking, should Ellie and I bring anything?" My mom replied with a thumbs up emoji. No words. Just that cold little icon. I offered to help with desserts. She said it was covered. I suggested we do something special for the kids this year, maybe a photo booth or crafts. She said, "Don't complicate it, Vanessa. It's already enough." Then, the week of the party, I saw my sister's Instagram post. 9 Christmas gift bags lined up with tags for the grandbabies.
9.
There were 10 grandkids in the family. Ellie made 10. I stared at the photo.
Zoomed in.
No tag with her name. I showed it to a friend. She said, "Maybe it's a mistake?" But mistakes don't happen this often. Not to the same people. Not to the same child. On the day of the party, Ellie and I arrived to find everyone else in matching green plaid pajamas, something they apparently organized weeks ago. The kids posed for a group photo. Ellie stood off to the side, unsure whether to jump in. I nudged her gently, but my mom said, "Let's just do one with the matching ones first, okay?" I felt Ellie's little hand tighten around mine. She didn't say anything. She never does. She's quiet, like I used to be. Watches everything. Says little. But I know when she's hurt. And that photo, that exclusion, cut her deeper than she could explain. Still, she smiled when they offered her a gingerbread cookie. Still said, "Thank you," when her aunt handed her a paper crown. She tried. She always tries. But I could see it in her eyes. That slow realization. That awareness that somehow, even in a room full of people who share her blood,
She was outside of something.
and I knew, standing there with that same ache in my chest I had carried for years. I couldn't let her grow up thinking this was normal. Thinking love had tears. Thinking she had to earn basic kindness. That's when I reached into my purse. Felt the smooth shape of the small wrapped box. The one I had brought just in case. Not because I was expecting the worst, but because I remembered the worst. And I refused to let history repeat itself with my daughter. So when the last gift was handed out, and everyone clapped and laughed and hugged their children, and Ellie looked around, blinking back tears, and my mom said through laughter, "Oops, we forgot her." I smiled, not out of anger, but clarity, because I hadn't come for their gifts. I had come prepared to give my daughter something better. Proof that someone thought of her, planned for her, loved her first. The moment I saw last year's party unravel, Ellie clapping politely while the other kids opened gifts with wide eyes and glittering bows, I made myself a promise. Never again. Not another Christmas of sitting quietly. Not another moment of pretending forgotten and uninvited were just accidents. Not when the child they were doing it to was mine. So I started planning early. I saved money quietly over months. Skipped takeout, packed lunches, sold a few old dresses online. And one morning in October, I walked into a tiny jeweler shop tucked between a bookstore and a coffee shop. The kind of place with velvet trays and quiet lighting. I asked the woman behind the counter, "Do you have lockets?" She showed me a few, but one stopped me cold. A delicate gold heart with the tiniest clasp and just enough space inside for a memory. I picked it up and whispered, "This one." 2 days later, I returned with a photo, Ellie and I at the park that spring. Her on my shoulders, our faces tilted toward the sky, caught mid-laughter. The jeweler smiled when she saw it. "You want this inside?" "Yes," I said. "And something engraved." She nodded. "What do you want it to say?" I paused, thought of every birthday no one showed up for, every group photo she was left out of. Then said, "You are loved beyond measure, Mommy." It took a week to make. When I picked it up, I didn't cry, but I held it in my hand like it was made of glass. Not because of the money, but because of what it meant. I wrapped it in silver paper, tied it with satin ribbon, and tucked it gently into the inside pocket of my purse, right next to my phone and house keys. Not because I knew they'd forget her again, but because I couldn't risk them doing it twice. I told myself maybe they'd changed. Maybe this time would be different. But in my heart, I knew. People who forget you when it's easy don't remember you when it counts. So when Ellie stood by that Christmas tree, lip trembling, empty-handed while the other kids tore open presents and her name was never called, I didn't panic. I didn't flinch. I reached into my purse, felt the soft edges of the box I'd wrapped just for her, and remembered the girl I used to be, who waited her whole life for someone to show up and never did. Then I knelt beside my daughter, and I showed up. Ellie's tiny hands twisted the hem of her dress as she looked around the room. Her cousins squealed over tablets and dolls. Wrapping paper flew through the air like snowflakes, and she just stood there.
Still.
Forgotten. I could feel it building in her chest. The heartbreak. The kind of silent shame a child can't name yet, but knows how to carry. The kind I carried for most of my life. My mother laughed like it was a sitcom.
Oh.
We forgot her. She actually clapped, like it was just another silly accident. Ellie turned to me, eyes welling. "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" That was it. I reached into my purse, knelt to her eye level, and said softly, "No, baby. You did everything right." I pulled out the small silver-wrapped box. She blinked, surprised. "For me?" I nodded. "From someone who never forgets you." The room started to quiet. One by one, the aunts, uncles, and cousins turned. Phones stopped clicking. No more paper tearing. Just silence. Ellie carefully peeled the ribbon, lifted the lid. Inside, the velvet box caught the light. She opened it
And gasped.
The gold locket gleamed. Her little fingers ran over the delicate heart, then paused. "Can I open it?" "Go ahead," I whispered. She clicked it open, and there we were, frozen in laughter, Our joy captured in that photo beneath the gazebo. On the other side, she read the inscription aloud, lips forming each word slowly. You are loved beyond measure, Mommy. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. You made this for me? I nodded. Because you'll never have to wonder if you matter. Her smile was soft and stunned and small, but it reached the deepest part of me. Then she turned slowly to the room, clutched the necklace to her chest, and said, to no one in particular, "This is my favorite gift." No one spoke. My sister looked down at her wine glass. My brother cleared his throat. Even my mother, so loud just moments ago, just stood there, jaw slightly open. She knew. They all knew. And I didn't have to say anything else. Not one word. Because sometimes silence says, you saw what you did. You knew what you were doing. And I won't beg you to explain it. I stood, lifted Ellie into my arms, and walked to the couch. She asked if I could put the necklace on her. I fastened the chain and kissed her cheek. She leaned into me, warm and safe. And as I looked across the room, at a family that once made me feel small, I didn't feel small anymore. I felt like a mother, a protector, a woman who had finally stopped waiting for love to come from people who forgot her too easily. By the time dessert was served, the air had shifted. You could taste the awkwardness in the peppermint bark. No one said anything directly, of course, but no one looked me in the eye either. The cousins who were once bouncing off the walls sat still, casting glances at Ellie's locket like it was a crown. My sister scrolled on her phone nonstop. My mom? She poured herself another glass of wine and started fussing with the candles like they were the problem. After the party, I got the first text before I even made it home. Aunt Monica. Just wanted to say, I saw what happened. That was wrong. Ellie is a sweetheart. The next day, my cousin Ray, if you ever want to do a separate kids gift exchange, next year, count me in. Then the real silence came. Not the quiet kind. The frosted kind. I wasn't removed from the family group chat. But suddenly I wasn't in it either. No replies to my thanks for hosting. No photos of Ellie in the party recap collage. Just radio silence. I didn't reach out. Didn't follow up. Didn't explain. Because there was nothing to explain. They didn't forget her. They excluded her. They tested whether I'd stay silent, and I didn't. And now, the weight of that made them uncomfortable. A week later, my sister posted a vague tweet. Some people will ruin a whole holiday just to be the center of attention. No names. Didn't need them. It got one like, from my mom. I didn't respond, because I was too busy helping Ellie write thank you cards to the people who had thought of her, like my coworker who gave her a puzzle book, and our elderly neighbor who baked us a cinnamon loaf just because. People who didn't share our blood, but somehow had bigger hearts. That weekend, Ellie looked up at me while drawing a snowflake. She said, "Mommy, I like our Christmas better." I blinked. You mean ours at home? She nodded. It's warmer, even when it's cold outside. And just like that, the frost from the family I was raised in didn't matter. Because the warmth we were building together, the one they always kept for me, now lived inside my daughter. And no silence, no cold room, no forgotten gift could touch that. The next year, we didn't go to my mom's party. No explanation. No RSVP. Just nothing. I didn't announce it. Didn't cause a scene. I simply chose us. Ellie and I started a new tradition. On Christmas Eve, we made cocoa with marshmallows that looked like tiny bears. She picked matching pajamas for both of us, blue flannel with little gold stars. We danced around the kitchen while baking gingerbread cookies in weird shapes because she couldn't care less about perfect edges. And that night, before bed, I gave her one gift. Not something fancy, just something thoughtful. A small storybook, handmade by a local artist. Inside, the story of a little girl who had been overlooked by a kingdom until she built her own. Ellie hugged me so tight, I could barely breathe. The next morning, we slept in. No pressure. No being dressed up to be judged. No explaining why she didn't get the big gift that others did. We built our own holiday. One that didn't hinge on whether others remembered her. Or remembered me. Word got around, of course. When we didn't show up to the party, I got a passive-aggressive text from my mom. Didn't expect you to hold a grudge through Christmas. That's not how family works. I didn't reply. Because, yes, that's exactly how family works when the only one hurting is the one who stayed quiet. Instead, I focused on something bigger. That January, I launched a small fundraiser. I called it No Forgotten Kids. A toy drive for children who often get overlooked, nieces, nephews, foster kids, neighborhood kids who don't get the big name on the gift tag. I used my design skills to make flyers, posted in local groups, asked friends and coworkers to share. By the second week, our living room was full of wrapped gifts. By Christmas the following year, we had served over 70 children. People asked why I started it. I never named names, just said, because every child deserves to feel remembered. Ellie became our chief helper. She drew cards for each bag, added glitter to wrapping paper, wrote little notes like, "This one's for someone who might think no one sees them. We see you." One day she turned to me and said, "Mommy, are we someone Santa?" I smiled. "No, baby. We're something better. We're proof that love doesn't forget." And that was the holiday we gave ourselves. No cold dining rooms. No fake apologies. No more waiting at the edge of someone else's joy. We created our own table and filled every seat with warmth. The next Christmas came quietly. No knock on the door. No surprise card. Just a text. "Mom, you should bring Ellie by this year. Family should stick together." It sat there on my screen like a trap door. Not an apology. Not accountability. Just a summons. The same people who laughed when my daughter was left out, who acted like her absence from a gift pile was a joke, now wanted us to come back, to sit in that room again, to pretend nothing happened. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I had nothing left to explain. Instead, I turned back to the kitchen. Ellie and I were elbow-deep in sugar cookie dough. There was flour on her nose and 3 colors of frosting smeared across her cheeks. We wore new pajamas that year, white and gold. Stars. Because she said they felt like magic. We just finished wrapping our last gift bag for the No Forgotten Kids toy drive. 72 this time. A new record. After dinner, I snapped a picture of us in front of the tree. No filters. Just her sitting in my lap, both of us laughing at something ridiculous. I posted it with the caption, "Our favorite season piece." No hashtags. No digs. No need. I got a few messages from old friends and coworkers. "Your smile says it all. Your daughter is glowing." That locket moment last year still lives rent-free in my heart. But the most surprising one came from my cousin Erica. We hadn't spoken in years. She wrote,
I saw what happened that day.
"I'm sorry I didn't speak up. You taught me what showing up for your child really means. Thank you." I stared at that message for a long time, because that's what this journey had really been about.
Not punishing them.
Not winning, but showing my daughter that love isn't something you chase. It's something you protect. And sometimes protecting it means walking away from people who drop it too easily. They sent an invitation. I never opened it, because the only one that mattered was the one I sent to my daughter. Every single day. You are enough. You are seen. And you will never be forgotten, not on my watch.